Okay, this video is to cover uh, day one of the World War II lecture notes. And the first thing I'd like you to make sure you have is this tab resize. Tab resize is a way to quickly and easily divide your screen. And that way, it really helps when you're taking notes or when you're having to toggle back and forth instead of toggling back and forth between slides just to see them both together. So if you don't have it, if you do have it, you can kind of skip this part and just get right to. If you don't have it, I have it because you can see this little icon here. But if you don't have it, you just open up a Google search link and type in tab resize and something like Chrome. I think it's a Chrome extension. So yeah, I mistyped it, but still, boom, it's right there. And then click it when you see chrome.google. And you should have an option like add or download or something like that. I would have to remove mine, but I don't want to. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm clicking it. And it should eventually be an icon with a diagonal arrows pointing in both opposite directions. Once you get that, go ahead and click this. And hopefully you have this video open on one tab. And then, well, let's walk you through how to make a copy of the document. All right. So in the classroom page, you should have something like this World War II lecture notes, and I'll have that in there. You click that and open it, and it should give you this document. Not that one, this one. Not that one, but this one. This one, yes. Once you get this, go ahead and choose File, and then make a copy. And when you do that, go ahead and put your name in the beginning. And I'd probably get rid of the word copy of. And then click the blue square. When you've done that, you should have something that looks like this. And go ahead and put your name, date, and period like I've done. And then pause if you need to. You feel like you're falling behind. Now you should have this document open. Okay. So then choose tab resize. I tried the 2x1 with this and I didn't like the look of it. 1x2 was pretty good. So go ahead and choose that. And then once you choose that, you should have these two nice and done. Okay. But I don't want it like that. I want the notes on one. See how it split up the screen so nicely? Yeah. So what happened is I already had my doc already created because I was playing with it before. But that's fine. Then I just got to move one. Okay, if you ever want to drag them and put them on the other one, you just grab the top of it and you hold and pull. And if you go towards an open one, it'll just put it right in there. And this is how you want to be set up when you're taking notes. That way you're not clicking back and forth. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. Provocative, controversial World War II attack without warning, World War II lecture notes. Your task, let's look at the visuals. This is the Nazi swastika. This is the Japanese symbol, the land of the rising sun. It's their flag. To say World War II was without warning is, I don't really believe it. I wrote a paper in college on if you looked at the oil and scrap iron embargo and you saw how the Japanese responded to the Russians with the Russo-American War in 1904, 1905, it was predictable that they would respond militarily to the U.S. After an embargo of our own, especially when it's with oil. Because Japan is an island nation, they really take their resources as, an essential material. Like oil, it was considered their lifeblood. And so when someone threatens that, then they say, well, then we got to go to war. You see the Nazis, provocative, controversial, this book. But, there was a rationale behind Nazi decisions. Even though it was false. Okay, so my class is ending. I'm going to pause real quick, and then I'll continue this video in a second. Okay, good, we're recording it. Okay, so Hitler's goal was to create the Third Reich. Reich is a German word that means empire, and he was trying to unite all the German-speaking people of Europe through policies of race and space. When the Nazis talk about race, they're talking about Aryan purebloods, and anything else that would mess that up, according to Nazi views, was considered bad. All right, so one bullet, one note. That's what I believe in. So go ahead and write in, fill in the missing blanks. Add in Reich, add in empire, which means empire. But this notion of uniting all German-speaking people is crazy. It would be like trying to unite all Spanish-speaking people or English-speaking people. There's no rational basis for it. But that was what the Nazis used to justify their military attacks, even though it's false. I know I'm muted. Hitler wanted to create Lebensraum, meaning which is the German word for living space. So this is second justification for the attacks by the Nazis. He said with a large amount of land, the Germans could spread out. Who doesn't want to spread out? If it cost someone else, is it justifiable? The Nazis thought so, but the rest of the world probably would disagree. All right, so I'm going to pause this recording and say goodbye to my first period class. Okay, let's continue with another slide or two. So this race and space rationale was used by the Nazis to justify their policies. Okay, let's take a look at these visuals. If you look at these visuals, you will see the swastika, the Iron Eagle, swastika again, at the heart of Nazi propaganda. Then you see this Lebensraum. This is how they created icons to unify the Nazi people, the German people, under one banner and explain their theories. Go to the next. You'll see the first German aggression was when Hitler moved troops into the Rhineland. The Rhineland's a demilitarized zone between France and Germany. And this was a clear and known violation of the Treaty of Versailles, but it didn't stop the Germans from doing it. They did it. So let's go ahead and take the note there. Adding Rhineland. In the Rhineland, there was supposed to be no military allowed, but they went in there. Basically, the Nazis did this because they wanted to see what the response would be to ignoring the Treaty of Versailles. And the response was a big nothing. No one did anything. So the Nazis said, well, if no one did anything, I guess it's okay. And so they're going to be encouraged. Keep going. Rearmament in the Rhineland was step one. It wasn't the final step for the Nazis. But France and the League didn't really care about keeping the Nazis following the Treaty of Versailles. So it pretty much got ignored. Why did the countries not try to stop the Germans then? Well, no one tried to stop it because they didn't want another war. World War I was awful. 40 million dead, another 20 million dismembered, losing limbs. No one wants that again. They remember their brother, their uncle, their father, son that they lost, and no one wanted to go through that again. And so the Nazis get away with it, and then they're just going to be encouraged. This is propaganda showing the Nazis rebuilding. You see the swastika and the blonde-haired German. Below is a picture of a German factory where they're rebuilding military technology. I believe they're making planes here. Let's take a better look by making this full screen. I think that's a turret on a plane. I'm not 100% sure though. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I know it's a factory, which shows the German rearming. I'll uh, take up this video again in a second. You should just keep playing it. It should work just fine on your end. Okay, let's go to slide 3. Here on slide 3, the German aggression continues in March 1938. By the way, is it just me, or does Germany geographically look like a wolf? See the like ears in the mouth, like trying to swallow Czechoslovakia once they got Austria added, not Australia, Austria. Anyway, March 1938, after the Rhineland doesn't get a response, remilitarizing, Hitler launches, which is known as the Anschluss, which is a German-Austrian union for the annexation of Austria. I think the guy's name is, who was that Austrian leader? Doofus or something? Doofendorf? I don't know. But when the Austrians got taken over by the Germans, there's a lot of anti-Semites in Austria too. Hitler's an Austrian. So like a lot of the people cheered in Austria when this happened, if you'll believe that. And you can see this picture in the textbook, at least one of my textbooks, where the Nazi soldiers are marching in parade, and they're cheering. They're doing the Hitler, Hail Hitler salute, and but some of the older gals are crying. So anyway, let's add the note for note 3. We're adding in Austria, and it's Anschluss. Anschluss. By the way, Austrians are a really good snow skier, and shushing is a thing that has to do with snow. Not sure exactly. Annex, or annexation, is having to do with taking property, so that makes sense. Annex means to join, take, add, unite, often in terms of property, land. We're writing annex and take. Why? There's a bunch of people in Austria that speak German. Of course, there's a bunch of people that German is the dominant language in the area. Does that necessarily justify taking it? No. But is that the justification they used to take it? Yes. So that's what was happening. So what does the League of Nations do about this? Well, that whole not wanting to go to war thing still existed. And so the League of Nations really didn't do anything. So when the League of Nations does nothing after remilitarizing the Rhineland, after taking Austria, Hitler goes, so I can basically do whatever I want. They're not going to do anything. And he does. And you're basically encouraging an aggressor to be more aggressive when you don't respond. And that usually works out poorly. Like if you give a bully the lunch money, they're going to come back the next day for more lunch money. Stand up to them. They might come back the next day, but they know you're not going to give it to them easily. Let's go to the next slide. And German aggression continues. In September 1938, Hitler announces he wants part of Czechoslovakia. And if you could say it, you're going to be really ahead of Gang Gang. In the brackets is how you say it, Czechoslovakia. When you see C and Z next to each other, pretend like it's CH in English. Okay? So, see if you can spell that in there. Czechoslovakia. This is a real good one to be side by side because the spelling can be tough. Um, there's a region of Czechoslovakia. See the part in orange here? That's called the Sudetenland. That is code for Southern land in German, I believe. And guess what language they speak? A bunch of people there speak German. And so the Nazis say, well, they speak German. We need to unite. Thank you. It's really only Southern from a German perspective. Um, so they have 3 million German speaking people. And basically, Lebensraum is invoked to attack, to take it over. But he doesn't attack and take it over. He just says he's going to. And so there's this conference in Munich to see what's going to happen with this. And what happens is French and the British decide, yeah, he wants Czechoslovakia, give it to Hitler. This will make him happy, and then he won't want anything more, and then he'll go away. But instead, now you've given Hitler the Rhineland, Austria, and now Czechoslovakia, so he can rebuild and be even more aggressive. This was a bad idea, but this is what happened. Germany. So who met? France. Right in France. Germany and Great Britain attend. It's a very famous meeting. This guy, Neville Chamberlain, quotes a very famous British Prime Minister, a guy named Benjamin Disraeli. And he goes, we've secured peace in our time. When he gets back off the plane, and all the people go, and so a bunch of people are cheering, even though they just sold out a country. Churchill, of course, he goes, well, you had a choice between peace and honor, and you've chosen neither. He was always one to break it down because their belief that they're going to get peace after this, he thought was extremely foolish. He was correct. So German aggression. Result of German aggression and appeasement is even further German aggression. Even though Chamberlain gives Hitler the Sudetenland, the Western nations don't stop Hitler's aggression. Instead, 6 months later, he takes all of Czechoslovakia. And at that point, the West knows this guy's not going to be stopped unless we do anything. And eventually, we're going to have war. Britain and France are worried about war. So they say, oh, yeah, World War I worked out pretty well with the Soviets, or the Russians back then, who are now the Soviets, on the other side of Germany, ready to attack. So maybe we should see if they're down for that again. So we just go, yeah, remember that support you gave to the whites during our war? That was not cool. So we're not down with you. So the Soviets are going to go a different way. This is Hitler walking on the backs of the spineless Democrat because they don't stand up to him. That's why they're spineless. Get the cartoon? Making jokes at Hitler. All right, let's make sure we got all the notes for 5. So we're adding appeased. Appease is to please or give in to an aggressor. And you're giving that in return for peace, even though you. So you give the Sudetenland in exchange for peace. They don't get peace, they just get more German aggression. So the Western nations still really didn't even try to stop Hitler yet. So they didn't even attempt it. The consequent, Hitler invades and occupies all of Czechoslovakia. 6 months later. And now they're really afraid of war. And this is a legit fear. And now when you fight Germany, they're going to be stronger because they've had added all these additional resources from the countries they've conquered or been given because the West was too afraid to stand up to them. All right. I am going to pause, but you should notice it and just keep playing. Okay, let's get a better look at this one and the next one. You see here, if you look closely, it says right there, spineless leaders of democracy, stepping stones to glory. And I bet you one of them supposed to be Chamberlain. I don't know. I don't know the leaders in Europe in 38 besides Chamberlain too well. But it's basically Danzig. That's a city that was the Germans kind of took back. Can't really read the rest of it. But that's definitely Hitler prancing along and probably a little swastika there. All right, let's go to the next one. There's this agreement made between the Nazis and the Soviets not to attack each other. It's called the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact. But you see, there's not a lot of trust. How do we know? Because Stalin's pretty paranoid. But the Nazis, this is Eastern Frontier, they were really eyeing the Soviet oil fields. But this shows you that they partitioned and divided up Poland between East and West. And the eastern part went to the Soviets, and the western part went to the Germans. Multiple times over the years, Poland was split up, and it was this Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact that was it. It's not an alliance. They're not saying they're going to protect each other, but it's a pact saying they're not going to declare war on each other either. It also secretly stated that when Germany conquered Poland, it would be split up between the two nations, with the German-speaking areas under the Nazi influence, which meant the West. Okay, so let's write in our notes for 6. So I gotta mess with this sizing. All right, but then I just go here. Due to Western support of the Mensheviks in World War One, basically that was the group called the Whites, and they were the ones that the Bolsheviks opposed, were the communists. Bolshevik, by the way, is a German word that means majority. Even though they weren't the majority, the communists called themselves the majority because they wanted to be the majority. Let's see, Soviet non-aggression. And yeah, like I said, it wasn't an alliance, but it was an agreement that we're not going to go to war. That would be good for the Nazis because then they could take the majority of their resources off of their eastern front and just focus on rolling up the other countries to the west. All right, I'm going to pause here and resume the video. You should just keep playing it. You won't even notice my pauses. Okay, so we finished note 6. Let's go on to 7. Oops. There we go. What the motivation for the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact was due to this pact, Hitler didn't have to worry about fighting a two-front war. Remember that whole Schlieffen Plan from World War One? Nazis didn't need a Schlieffen Plan in World War II because they had the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. So write in front and directions. I'm going to change the notes to reflect what's in the notes. When you have to fight a two-front war, you have to split up your resources. It's just not a good military strategy. September 1939, Hitler invades Poland. This is the start of World War II, and this is going to be a period of short period of German domination of Eastern Europe. Britain and France finally declare war in response because Poland was an ally, even though they didn't have military resources there to really help Poland. This, since once Poland was invaded, this was the start of World War One, World War Two. Sorry, World War Two had begun, but this invasion is the start of it. Let's look at that cartoon a little more carefully. Let's make it a little bigger. It's a similar cartoon. Notice Stalin and Hitler greeting each other with their famous masks. You got a Polish soldier on the ground. They had just stomped out. They're not fans of each other. They'll work with each other to get what they want. Stalin says the bloody assassins of the world, I presume. Scum of the earth, I believe. So they're not fans of each other. Hitler, for years, have been saying, had communists as part of his unholy trinity. He wrote it openly in his autobiography, Mein Kampf, which means my struggle. And so everyone knew this, and he didn't try to hide this. So, what do you see in the political cartoon, and what's the message? Go ahead and pause the video and answer. While you're doing it, I'll do the same, just for timing purposes. Let's see. I think that's the main message. They didn't really trust each other, even though they worked together. Um, and they worked to successfully take Poland. But you'll see that there's good cause for a lack of trust, even though Stalin trusted Hitler more than he should have. For once, he wasn't paranoid enough, even though he was normally paranoid too much. Okay, let's go to the next one. So I can give you an example of how to do the quizzes. You're to answer these quizzes on the note-taking sheet, and they're in the notes you just took. But you need to do it in a complete sentence. If you don't do it in a complete sentence, I'm going to give you 0. And you need to write it up, click completely. Strong's living space for the German people. Anschluss is. That's how you got to answer it. If you don't remember, it's in the notes. Blank, blank. Germans live in the Sudetenland. You can't say it. You can't say they. You got to use the proper nouns. Otherwise, you're not going to have a sentence. And you have to have some words from the question in there. But there's a lot of words in the question that and are proper nouns. So that's the ones you should use. Hitler appeases Hitler by. That's how you want to start it. Right? It's like that. Go ahead and finish the quiz and call it an end to day one. Do not submit today. Do not submit today. That is all.